"Get out of that truck, Mickey G." And I told him, I said, "Leonard, you don't want me to get out of this truck." Anyway, Robbie said, "Yeah, I'm the only barrel man ever knocked Mickey G out." You didn't have a choice. You won or you got out of the rig. I'm stomping around. I'm in bad mood now. And I'll never forget my dad said,
welcome to the Rodeo Time Podcast. Very special guest I've been looking forward to for a long time, the one and only world champion, Mickey G. We're going to talk about not only steer wrestling, but picking up. He's got some bullfighting stories, a fight story, and all along the way, auctioneering. Go to gauctions.com. Check out coming up on April 18th. But I got to give my man this gift, Texas Precious Metals. This is for you. I know you got a gold buckle, but that's a silver coin from our friends at texmetals.com. That's a Texas round. It's real silver. Cool. It's 1 ounce of silver.
That's kind of like, I got an auction yard up there we put on auctions.
Which is organized.
And
cleaned.
It's if people will come get their stuff after the auction. That's the problem, and I like to keep it mowed and cleaned up. Then you have to move everything. So we started charging a rental fee for storage fee for it being there. That's helped a little bit, but still, just you got your buddies that
I'll get by there.
Get by there, and again, about 2 months later, dude, I'm tired of mowing around this. Somebody come get it. But
it's right. That's east of Wichita, right?
Yeah, just
on
right
287, north on the north side of the highway. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How long has that been there? G Auctions is what you call it, right?
We bought it 5 or 6 years ago. COVID, I don't like to talk about that word. Yeah, 5 or 6 years, I guess we've owned that piece of property, but we've been putting auctions on for about 12 years now, 11, 12, 10, 11, 12, something like that.
Oh, you've been, what all kind of auctions are they? Just equipment?
I just put equipment auctions on there. And then I got the contract with Mike's Towing to do the Wichita City's impound auction. So we do them about every 2.5, 3 months. And then just kind of whoever calls. I do a few gun auctions, and then like we did a big antique car deal over at Old Park. A guy sold out or died, and his family wanted to sell that. We sold 100 restored antique cars over there, and it was a big deal. It was good.
Golly, it's got to be hard not to see stuff come through there. Guns, cars, or like a piece of equipment. Like, ooh, I'm going to use that.
Well, she's threatened me that our place starting to look like Sanford and Sons, kind of like what you told me. But no, it's you run across a lot of cool, unique stuff. And the cool thing about it, we get to see it and find it first.
Right.
So, yeah.
My that's what my granddad cut his teeth on my mom's side. He in Amarillo had an auction, and he would do estates. Like somebody would die, and he would clean out the furniture, and they may have a car, a couple guns, and he'd have special sales that were his New Year's Day sale was the big one, where it was like guns, cars, and big items, you know. But the middle of the summer, he would take the summer off, but in the spring and fall, it'd be like your everyday, like this table and these chairs, and most of my furniture in college, and even now to this day, I'll find one of his buyer tags on it.
That's funny.
With he had a code that was 10 letters, and it would be, he knew that code, and he knew how much he had in it.
Yep.
And so when he was, auctioning and it said BLK or something like that, it would, he would know he needed to get, I think Black Horse was his code. And so he would know that was $125, and he would, anyway. Yeah, spending time at those auctions. Matter of fact, that's what this building was when we moved here.
I'll be.
That's why there was that big partition. There's windows for get your buyer number inside that office.
Who was the auction?
I don't remember. Yeah. But it was built in 2004.
Yeah.
And they did auctions here. But then that roll-up door that's now a mural of me, they would roll the furniture, whatever, to the back.
Yeah.
But
I started opening one of them in Wichita, in which there's a big need for one, but man, it takes a lot of that to make any money.
Yes.
So, something that.
Yeah. What is it, 10% commission? That's what my granddad's always was. And
well, I get 10% of my big auction, and then like I went and looked at a deal yesterday up for a lady, and I bid it at 40%. So
yeah, I get that 100%. I get that.
it takes a lot of time, a lot of
It's
man hours.
it's just as much work as like a
Yeah, it takes just as long to sell that as it does a bulldozer,
That's a good point.
So, yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And probably a few more buyers for this, marketing for the bulldozer, et
Yeah,
cetera.
there is. And that's the thing about my auction is I try to bring in things that have a big market for.
Mm-hmm.
Golf carts, everybody in Wichita Falls owns a golf cart.
Dang, that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? But when you got bulldozers, you got 5 people wanting a bulldozer, which I like selling them too. But
When's your next?
April 18th.
Oh, coming up.
So we're getting fired up for it right now. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. We got about 400 pieces on the lot right now. So.
Equipment and yeah.
Yeah.
Was the auction something that you had your mind on while you were rodeoing?
Man, I had a good friend of mine, Jeff Peck, that we had talked about it growing up and just jacked around. There was a man in Wichita Falls named John Lovett, and John Lovett was auctioneer there. And right out of school, I started helping him around there, just trading and doing stuff, and was a ring man for him. And just kind of, got intrigued with it and was like, man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then messed around there and got to rodeoing and just kind of got away from it. And then I went to work for a man there in Wichita, Harry Patterson, that had all the dealerships and stuff selling trucks for him. And whenever we got done, well, my dad was always like, dude, you need to go and get your auction license, because these little benefit deals around and stuff, I'd sell them for them and just jack with it. Of course,
Oh, you're the auctioneer.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so he's like, you need to go to auction school, go to auction school, get your auction license. And I was like, yeah, well, you won't ever do it. So anyway, I guess about 11, I don't know, what year was it? 2015, I think. I went to auction school in Dallas and got my license, and we ain't looked back since. So
Yeah. That it's such an exciting way to sell something.
Yeah.
Even we would have so many people, or my granddad would. He would have ring men, and I did that every now and then, but he would go down the street and hire guys from the halfway house to give them a second chance.
Yeah,
like
sure.
he would pay them cash. Like it was just, because it's a simple job for these guys to carry the furniture to the back. And I would always throw on a polo with those guys, gory auctioneers, and I would carry the furniture.
Yeah.
So anyways, regardless, like me and those guys became good buddies. And but there were so many people that would just come watch and not buy anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it was exciting to watch. But I bet that dozer selling. I bet that is exciting.
Yeah, it gets fun, and like I say, my thing is salesmanship. I mean, nobody wants to come to a dull auction, and just we have a good time. I jack with everybody pretty hard, and we have a good time. We have a good time.
My granddad mentored a man by the name of Spanky Assiter. He's up in Canyon. He used to when Speed, I think it was the Speed Channel when they started selling cars.
Right.
He was the one of the first auctioneers to sell those cars.
That's awesome.
Your car story about the antiques made me think of him.
Yeah.
Was the car when you sold those 100? Was that that was a big ordeal? I bet a lot of people watching.
It was, because it's like you said, a lot of people come there just interested to see what they brought. Because the man that owned that place, everybody locally would try to go by there and look at them. And they're like, he wouldn't even let us come in there and look at them. He just kind of hard to get along with a little bit. And they're like, man, we just want to see what all. So people would be trying to get that deal ready, and people would come like, can we look? Can we look? I'm like, yeah, come in and take you a quick peek real quick. But
What a good marketing ploy for you all that it worked out like that. That he was so secretive.
Yeah,
and everybody
it was
wanted
good. A lot of interest. I mean, there was people. I don't remember how many were registered, but there was people everywhere.
Yeah,
it's cool to do auctions that has that much interest.
Yeah, and I guess it's exciting to watch. But that person, if they're interested in that item, like the sale price is so public right then, everybody hears it.
Yeah,
it's not some secret. I wear Shady Rays because they fit my face. They block the sun, they look amazing, and they're affordable. And if you use code DALE on ShadyRays.com, they'll be even more affordable, to the tune of 40% off when you buy 2 pairs. So go to ShadyRays.com and use code DALE. I love you all. What year did you retire?
I retired in 2011 pretty much, but since I qualified for Calgary that year from making the finals, I went on to Calgary, and I went to a few rodeos in 12. And then in 2012, that April, is when I quit picking up for Benny, and then went to work for Harry Patterson there in town.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess I started at the end, but I kind of want to start at the beginning of the rodeo.
Sure.
Yeah. But I love how the auction, maybe we started at the end, we'll start back and just kind of let them meet in the middle. But yeah, to me, and one reason why I was so interested in having you on is growing up in rodeo, your name always has carried a lot of respect, not only like with your rodeo achievements, but also just like, I think fear. People just like, don't mess with Mickey G is what I kind of like the vibe I picked up on. But it seems like everybody in the community respects you.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, man, I'd love to hear his story from him.
Yeah, when I was a little boy, I was kind of like all the rest of the boys, growing up rodeo. My dad rodeoed forever and steer wrestled. And then, C.R. Boucher, Eugene Weekly, Marty Melvin, all the big boys, Keith Easter, Eugene Weldon. Our arena was just always piled full of guys that made the NFR and was champions and stuff. And man, it was just cool watching them guys come there and practice. And then that's just what I wanted to do. And my goal, my dream was always to be a world champion cowboy or make it to the NFR mainly.
Yeah.
And my dad, he trained lots of guys that come here and rodeoed and steer wrestled and stuff, and he'd help them out. And Dad always had a couple teams of bulldogging horses, and he'd let them guys come ride his horses. And so when he wouldn't let me start bulldogging until I guess I was 15. Mm-hmm. I wasn't very big then. I know you probably can't believe that, but back when I was 15, I wasn't very big. But I roped kids and team roped quite a bit growing up. And I kept telling him, Dad, I want a bulldog. Well, you ain't big enough. I said, come on, man, let me bulldog. Well, what he didn't know, when he was off at work, I'd take my calf horse and I'd track the steers around the arena till they got slowed down, and I'd use the fence for a hazer, and I'd jump off and catch them, throw them down. So the first time he let me bulldog when I was 15, he's like, dang, dude, you kind of act like you done it. Yeah, man, you're going to be a natural, not knowing for 2 years I've been bulldogging already, but I just had that much try. I had that much want to. Yeah. And, that's what I tell young kids anymore, that I don't care if it's football, basketball, rodeo, it don't matter what it is. If I watch y'all practice 2 times, I can tell that there's always the 1 or 2 that really has it, that are winners. And that goes with life of anything. There's some people that want it that bad that they're going to do whatever they got to do to be good at it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's so funny because, I can see the steer. Like, you could get it going slow enough that steer's just like, all right, whatever. I'll just track in front of you. Yeah. That'd be the way to start. I guess I just always pictured somebody just hightailing it out of the box.
Yeah.
But really, you need something just kind of barely loping.
Yeah. He had traded for a big longhorn steer from a neighbor of ours over that tripped steers, and big old longhorn steer, and he couldn't outrun me. And so when I started, he let me run him 5 times a day. We had about 20 practice steers, but that's the only one he let me run. And I'd go down, I'd run him and trot down there to return alley and bring him back. And so I got to run him 5 times a day, which was good. He took care of me. Uh-huh. That steer didn't run much, and he was big enough to hold me up if we was having a wreck or whatever. And so I run him for about, probably 3 months.
Yeah.
And finally he let me graduate to some more steers, and we started that way. But
3 months. Dang.
Yeah. Run the same steer for about 3 months and got me going good. And then Dad always had a couple teams of horses, like I say, runner. He always was training horses, training bulldogging horses and hazing horses. And that's one thing that I always credited him for, was having good horses. Mm-hmm. Had a little horse called Ball when we was young that he sold to Debs Phelps up in Oklahoma. And then he had another horse. He called him Leroy, but Clarence LeBlanc bought him up there and took him to all the IRA rodeos, and they called him Fox. Mm. And he was a yellow, flaxy mane-tailed horse, and kind of a chocolate yellow, and he was a bad dude. Mm-hmm. And so Dad's had several good horses, and that was, I think, a beneficial to my deal is he always had good horses under me, and started me the right way. I see so many people start young guys and get them coming in there, and they just want to see a wreck. you know, and instead of taking the time to do it right, have the right kind of steers, have the right kind of horses, you know, and take the time. My boy's 18 years old, and he's fixing to start, and his name's Cooper G. But he's been through football and basketball all his high school life, and he just got done going to state in basketball.
Oh, cool.
And so he's wanting to start bulldogging now. And it's kind of funny because he rodeo when he was little, and then when he started playing sports, he was done. He didn't want to ride horses, nothing. So I told him the other day, I said, son, first thing we got to do is probably teach you how to halter a horse first, you know. So, but I'm kind of excited about that, to get the right kind of steers and go back and start him like my dad started me, you know.
I just thought about it and kind of wonder. I think that people come to me asking how to get started riding bulls, like being a guy on the internet. And I've always thought it was important to have a practice pen. And so in college and thereafter, I always had practice stock around or was around a pen. And so I've helped a lot of people get started. And my observation, I've also helped Lyle Sankey with Sankey Rodeo schools and those 3-day schools. And so now when people message me, like, if you don't have any resources at all, I think the best place to start is a school. But if you had, let's say in a perfect world, you could choose, I think the best place to start is somewhere that you can practice regularly and slowly, meaning like, you know, you don't want to just go get on ABBI bulls for your first 10 bulls. You know, obviously you need a jump kicker. And anyhow, it sounds like I just assumed with you know, timed events, maybe a school would be the best place to start. But obviously, like, you know, with your dad having steers and horses there, like 90 days before you turn one over at a high rate of speed is probably just the absolute safest way to, because I imagine a lot of those guys starting out like blow out some knees. And would that be the biggest injury for you guys?
Yeah, probably. But, you know, like going back to the starting in the right kind of bull, a jumping kicker, or, you know, the right steers. You know, if I go get my pockets pawed off of me, I got some big old 650 weight steers that's just fresh and going to tear you up.
Yeah, stiff necks.
Then you know what? I'm going to get bruised up and banged up, and I'm going to be like, you know what? I might not want to be a bulldogger. You know, but if like my boy, if I start him right and let him have some confidence builders like the jumping kicker bulls, if you get, you know, there may be BI bulls out there that's slamming your head in the dirt every about 2 jumps. It ain't gonna be long. You ain't gonna want no more of that,
right? Yeah,
you know. So it's the same thing in each event, you know. And it's like you said, some people have that at their footsteps, that they got people that's willing to take the time, and then you got some kids that come from no rodeo background or nothing, nobody to help them, so they don't have no place to go other than the schools.
Yeah.
So you know.
I interviewed a guy the other day, Brian Deegan, and in his heyday, he was a motocross guy that always went head-to-head with Travis Pastrana. But in the dirt bike world, Brian Deegan is a legend, and his son is now dominating motocross and is getting flack because, like, well, you know, your dad is right. And his son was quoted in using more colorful language, "I'm sorry, your dad's a pansy." And I thought that was super interesting just because, like, somebody may throw rocks at Cooper, but, like, I'm not going to apologize because my dad worked his tail off. And same thing with you, with your dad. And, man, maybe it's just time for the guy that's throwing the rocks, like, hey, you go be the first one and set it up for your son. But I thought that was super interesting just because, like, it's such a good mindset of, like, man, I'm not going to apologize because I have this resource. I'm going to use it to the best of my ability. But
yeah.
To me, it's a blessing for somebody like Cooper, like, to get to learn from a champ.
Sure. You know, I talked to Luke a while back, and Luke Branquino, when we was talking, you know, his boys are bulldogging and stuff, and he said it's great, but then on the other hand, there's lots of pressure on them because everybody in the world, here we go back to what the world thinks of you, expects him to be bad to the bone just because Luke's 5-time world champion.
Right.
You know, now they're expecting his boy, hey, what do you got?
Right.
And that boy wants to be as good as Luke, but Luke's like, man, I'll tell him, be you. You know, you're not me. Be you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think once they get that figured out, that just be you.
Right.
You're not going to do what I did.
Yeah.
And there ain't nobody, no two people alike,
Right.
you know. So
Yeah, I felt that pressure. I was roommates in college with Jacobs Crawley, and me and a couple other guys, his brother, and we all kind of rodeoed in the same circles. And with my bronc riding, I felt that same thing, like because he went to his first NFR in 11, and then everyone thereafter, and I was always behind and not near as. But I just finally, I was like, man, this is my career.
Yeah.
I can't stop. And it didn't create animosity between me and Jacobs. He was more of a mentor of mine than a, competition. But anyways, that same thing I had to realize at some point, like, this is my path. I can't live his path.
that's right.
And that in and of itself is a lesson that a guy might take a while to learn.
Yeah.
But so what did it look like when you took off pro rodeoing?
Well, so I rode with my dad, and Hayes for him, and he Hayes for me, and he was kind of getting towards the end of his career when I really got going, and but he stayed hooked long enough to get me, going and with the right guys, and so he had a little horse called Saint that was a good little horse, and we rodeoed on him for a while. Then we ended up buying me a horse off Marty Melvin that he rode at the finals several times, and they called him Rags. And a little sorrel ball face horse that was just easy to get along with and easy to ride. And I got to winning a little bit. And so I decided when I was 18 to go get my permit and see if I can get it filled. Well, about 2 rodeos, I filled my permit. And we went to, I guess one of the first big rodeos I entered was Austin. Of course, back then it wasn't like it was now. Everybody could kind of go everywhere, Now they got it limited so much and stuff. It's kind of hard for a young guy or especially an older guy to get back in to rodeo, and it's kind of hard because it's got the limits on the deal, which I won't get into that day because I'm not a fan of that. But anyway, Austin was one of my big first rodeos, and Roy Duval was there. Of course, Roy Duval's kind of everybody's hero in the bulldogging world, and anyway, Roy was like 4-2, was winning the round, and I come back was 4-1. And I went around there at Austin, and I just thought I wanted faster than Roy Duval. And I'm just a 18-year-old punk kid, and I'm like, man, I can do this. I think I can do this.
Yeah,
so,
that had to have been a big moment.
It was, and it was a big
confidence.
Big confidence moment. Yeah, for sure.
How did the rest of the rodeo pan? Because it's too long and a short, right?
It was too long and short. I don't think I made the short round that year. I can't remember. I just remember winning the first round.
Yeah, that's big enough.
And then I started, man, I want to rodeo. This is what I want to do, And so I started going and just entering some rodeos around and was pretty successful at it. And then
what year is that? What was your rookie year?
My rookie year would have been 1995.
Okay, gotcha.
94, 95.
Yep.
Then I went ahead and bought my card, and I wish I hadn't have because I bought my card not really having a plan.
Really
and
green.
Then green and broke. You know how that age of your life, 19-year-old broke guy trying to figure out how to go rodeo and stuff. And so I didn't go to probably about 15, 20 rodeos. And so my rookie year, I kind of wasted, because I didn't really have a goal or have a plan to go rodeo and stuff. And I wish I'd have waited and bought my card the next year and go try to win Rookie of the Year,
Yeah. Yeah. And at what point did you – what a neat experience, and all I can think about is the Wright brothers getting to experience the same thing just a little bit at the beginning of their career was like getting a rodeo with your dad.
Yeah, that was good, especially being at that age of 19, going and seeing all the deal, being a little bit successful, and Dad kind of reining me back in, like might not be hanging out the beer tent all night, might need to let's go. We got slack in the morning or something like that. It was cool having him that's been there and done it and knew how to enter, knew the situations of kind of leading, guiding me and keeping me, like I say, reeled in and knowing what's going on. It was kind of fun having him around.
How old were you when he got out of the rig?
Well, I ended up, I guess it was 1998 at Fort Worth was kind of my first big check that I won. Alfalfa Fedderson. Do you know Alfalfa
I
Fedderson?
don't.
Alfalfa Fedderson's up there at El Reno, Oklahoma. He's kind of like you. He's a hippie.
Okay. Yep.
Rolled his britches legs up and might smoke you one of them left-handed cigarettes periodically. And but I'll tell you about Alf. Hazed really good and always had a really good team of horses. He had a horse back in the day called Catfish.
Okay.
And Catfish was the horse that everybody rode. This before my time. But
Yellow eyes, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but Catfish, everybody rode him everywhere. Always had 2 or 3 guys ride him at the NFR, and that's what kind of put Alf on the map.
Gotcha.
Oh, Catfish. And then Alf just kept coming up with good horses, and Alf never did. He was a little guy, so he bulldogged a little bit, but not big enough to really go win a lot. But he hazed really good, and that's how he lived, off the 25% mount money. And he always had him a good crew of guys. Well, in 1998, I asked
what
him.
a system.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Had him a big trailer, Samstown out there. He was a little hustler now. And Samstown out there furnished him a horse trailer and those sponsorship stuff. And
That's neat.
I'll say at 19 or 20 years old, Alf probably wasn't the best person to go rodeo with. You probably need a little age on you before you went.
Yeah.
He might lead a man astray a little bit. But
Catch him at mid-20s, maybe?
Yeah. But anyway, I rode his horse there in 1998 at Fort Worth. I called him and said, "Hey, man, can I ride your horse?" He had a good black horse, called him Smoke. And I went second in the first round, went like 4th or 5th in the second round, and ended up winning Fort Worth that year.
Dang.
And I won about $12,000. And I was like, yeah, let's go.
A lot of money in 98.
So, in 98, that was a lot of money. I think I had about $300 or $400 in my pocket,
and probably put you pretty high in the standings.
It did right then. So I kind of started going some rodeos around there with them. And anyway, ended up about this spring out in Logandale, Nevada, and some of them rodeos, and then ended up coming back home and started running out of money a little bit and come back and went to work that year. And that spring, Steve Duhon was riding Jimmy Pyre's horse. Jimmy and them lived in there at Sonora. And anyway, he had a little horse called Scooter. They called him Bad Motor Scooter. And he was the real deal. He was the horse in the bulldogging at that time.
Yeah.
And Steve tore his knee up at Roy Duval's Jackpot in May. And the next week was Stephenville and Mineral Wells Rodeo. So I was riding a horse with John Kleckler's there at Stephenville, and I went up to Jimmy and I asked my dad, I said, "Man, I want to go rodeo. Who do I need to go with?" And he said, "Well, who's the best horse out there?" And I said, "Scooter." And he said, "Well, go ask him if you can ride him. He's letting everybody else ride him." Man, I was a nervous wreck. I was scared to death to go ask Mr. Jimmy if I could ride Scooter, and so I went over and I asked him, I said, "Hey, would there be any chance I could ride Scooter at Stephenville and Mineral Wells this morning and tonight?" Was up that morning slack and then that night at Mineral Wells. And he said, "Well," he said, "I've got quite a few guys on him here this morning." He said, "I tell you what, how about you ride him over tonight at Mineral Wells?" And I said, "Okay, that's what we'll do." And get over there. And him and my dad knew each other for a long time. And I was 3-6 win Mineral Wells.
Golly.
And the first time I rode him, and I walk over when I got done throwing my steer down, and my dad looked at me and Jimmy and said, "Well, don't look like you're going to get along with him too good." And
could have been 3-5.
yeah. So that fall, Marvin Dubose and Mike Smith and some of them guys and Joe Walker, Jeff Corbella, they was rodeoing with Jimmy riding his horses. And so I jumped in there with them and got to go to, I don't know, we went to 15, 20 rodeos in 98, the fall of 98. And then 99 comes back around, and Jimmy says, "Well, are you going to rodeo with us?" I said, "Yes, sir. I'd love to."
Yeah.
And I entered Fort Worth, and I won Fort Worth again. So I won Fort Worth back to back. I won at 98 and 99.
Dang.
Won about 13,000 there at Fort Worth that year, and just stayed hooked with them all year, rodeoing. And Steve got healed up, and he come back. And, rodeoing with Steve Duhon, Mike Smith, Mike won the world in 98 riding Scooter.
Mm-hmm.
And just being with them guys that are winners,
Yeah.
you didn't have a choice. You won or you got out of the rig.
Yeah.
But being with them guys that knew how to go win, knew how to rodeo, knew where to be, and stuff. I credit a lot of my learning how to bulldog from my dad, but I credit a lot of my success in bulldogging to Jimmy Pyre, Steve Duhon, Mike Smith, those guys.
Gotcha. That year was big.
It was big, and we rodeoed and went along there and made the NFR that year and come in 11th or maybe 13th.
How many in that pickup made it?
Mike Smith made it, and me. Yep. The year before, 5 guys rode scooter at the NFR in 98.
Dang.
And then that year, just Mike and I rode him. And but I'll never forget Lee Graves and was winning the world that year, and then Tommy Cook was winning second. And Tommy and I had been pretty good buds. He come to house practice a lot and stuff. And it was my first year to go to the NFR. I didn't know the ropes, and so Tommy kind of took me under, hey, you need to do this, do this, do this, do that, and we got out there, and man, I was just having a ball, make my dream to make the NFR, and I made it. Come in 11th spot. I never once thought about winning the world.
Yeah,
never, and just kept throwing them down, and winning and going and. Man, we was having a blast. I had a bunch of my buddies from home out there, my family, and man, there's no story ending telling that could happen like 1999.
Yeah,
it's just I think about it from time to time, and it was just cool.
What point in the rodeo did you look up and realize it was all possible?
About round 7.
Okay.
About round,
dang, far into it.
That far into it. I don't know if I was just that dumb or if I just was having too much fun out there. And I was just throwing them down, trying to win as much money as I have. We didn't come from a lot of money. We had to work hard for our money and just work and scramble up enough money to go for a couple of weeks and hope we win something, And, man, about that 7th round, I was like, man, this could happen. And then the 8th round come, and the 9th round come, and then come to the 10th round, all I had to do is throw one down to win the average. And it looked like if I throw him down and win the average, I was going to win the world.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, there was one black steer in there. I used to remember his number, and I forgot his number now. But I told my dad, we was walking up there to look at, see what everybody had drawed. And I said, you know what? I said, if we stay away from that one steer, then we got it. And
sure enough,
I looked down that list and oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Because he'd stop. Like if you got to start, he'd stop right there. And then if you try to let him enough where you go catch him, then he'll try to outrun you to the back end.
Dang.
And Thomas and Mack, you got one to try to outrun you back end, it can happen that fast.
Right.
So I'm running and I'm stomping around. I'm in bad mood now. And I'll never forget my dad said, stop and think for a minute. I said, what? He said, that's somebody drawed bad. He said, he's the one that drawed bad, not you.
Yeah.
He said, dude, you don't have to have a very good one.
Yeah.
He said, you're different. You're a different creature. He said, you can do things that a lot of guys can't. And I said, oh, you're just trying to get my mind off of it and pump me up. He said, no, I'm telling you. He said, I ain't never told you this before, but you're different.
Yeah.
He said, just go do
What a time to save it for.
Yeah. He said, go do your job. That's all you got to do. So I said, what do you think? What would be your game plan? And, you asking me earlier about rodeo with my dad. It was always cool to, when I'm in positions like that, to have somebody there or somebody I could call and say, hey, what do you think? And he said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, if you miss the barrier, he's going to try to outrun you. Then he's going to get tricky down there at the end. Mm-hmm. I'd rather try to catch him here as I had down there.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget, Jimmy and I called my name next. We're riding in the Thomas and Mack, and I couldn't spit. I was so nervous. I couldn't spit. And my wife, her name's Amber, and we was just dating at that time. And Jimmy looks over at me. He said, what do you think, G? And I said, let's try to win first. And he said, Reckon Amber's at the bar right now. Well, how you come up with that? Why not? But I was like, you son of a bucks, is that all you can think about? Well, as we're riding in there to run this 10th round steer to win the world championship, And I back in there, and I took way too good a start than I meant to take. And we blow the bear out, and I catch him with 3.6. I win the round.
Dang.
Win the round, win the average, win the world.
Yeah.
Set a record for the fastest on 10 head. Set a record for the most money won in a single season. Set a record for the most money won in a single year.
Yeah. Dang.
It was just
what a wild first NFR.
that's
Who all was in that class, that world champ class?
oh shoot, it was me and Todd Soon, Mike Smith, Rod Lyman, Birch Nagard. I think Jason Lair was there.
Yeah.
Shoot, there was
Yeah.
yeah
Heyday.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a
it
way
was
to
good.
What a way to put your stamp on your first NFR.
Yeah.
The fastest on 10 head, that record still standing?
No, what was cool about it, Butch Myers had the record at like 43 something, and I broke it with 42 flat on 10. And then about, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years later, Rope Myers, Butch's son, he come in and was like 39 seconds on 10. So he won it back, know. So I thought that was really cool that it went back in the Myers family, that you took your dad's record back from somebody.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that record still stands today.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Of course, I knew the money end of it
Right.
wasn't going to last very long, going up the way it did. But it was cool just to have it for a year or two, So.
What casino kept the steer wrestlers that year?
That year was at the Rio.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I remember walking by. They had the saddles and the world champion buckles and stuff. They had and the bronze. They had all that stuff right when you walk into the Rio, and I'd walk by it every day. And I'd look at that and go, golly, that'd be cool.
Somebody's going to win that.
Somebody's going to win that, man. Lee Graves or Tommy Cook, one of them guys, and they're both great guys. That's the thing about bulldogging is it's such a camaraderie of guys that, I want to win, but everybody just kind of helps everybody.
You have to, it seems like.
It's
when
just,
you're sharing a horse and sharing a hazer.
Yeah.
You have to.
There's times, people does stupid stuff and get mad at each other and everything, but it's like the next day it's over,
Right.
We're right back buds again, whatever. I kind of got a funny story on that. Len Churchill, he ended up riding my horse. He's from up there in Nebraska and heck of a good cowboy. And but he's a horrible fighter. and we got to Salinas one year, and I had Tyler Pearson and Jake Hettinger and Anthony Norwood. I can't remember how many guys were with me in my rig. I had a team of horses at that time, and the bulldoggers all like to play pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And so Len comes over, and he's got his little Flaherty shorts on and his little wife beater T-shirt on, and he comes over and gets him a truck, and we're sitting there, me and him playing pitch, and it's before the short round that day at Salinas. And there's some barrel racers parked right next to us there. And anyway, you ever played pitch?
My dad did. He tried to teach me.
There's 5 points you get in pitch. It's high, low, jack, joker, and game. And so we was playing for like $10. I mean, it wasn't like we was playing for thousands of bucks, Anyway, well, I had low, and Lynn thought he had low. And I said, no, I had the low, Lynn. And anyway, he gets pissed over $10 there that I beat him in pitch, which he thought he had the low and I thought I did. So he just steps out of my truck and comes around there and tells me to get out of the truck. And Anthony Norwood and Tyler Pearson could say it better than anybody. Could they say, get out of that truck, Mickey G. And I told him, I said, Leonard, you don't want me to get out of this truck. Get out of that truck, Mickey G. Come on. So when I stepped off that.
What year is this?
This was probably 2007 or 8.
So you had.
No, I'll tell you when it was. It was about 2005 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're getting close to being a veteran rodeo cowboy.
Sure. We've been.
You had stepped
I
out
got
of the
the
truck
young
before.
boys. Yeah, Tyler Pearson and them, they was just young.
Yeah.
Tyler's the world champion now and the stud now. He's phasing out. And this was back when he was just getting rolling good, you know.
But you had stepped out of the truck before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have stepped out of the truck a time or two. But anyway, I step out of the truck and I give Leonard a pretty good whipping there. And it was so funny because I hit him and knocked him down. And then I look and these barrel racers had jumped in their trailer, scared to death, but they was peeking out their blinds. You know, I could see them peeking out their blinds. They're like, what the crap? Anyway, so I whipped Leonard pretty good there and swelled both eyes shut on him. And we had to go, and he had to haze 2 or 3 steers in the short round. And I had to haze 2 or 3 steers in the short round there at Salinas. And he's warming his horses up, and I'm warming my horses up over in the warm-up pen. And he trots up there to me, and his old eyes you can barely peek out of them, you know, and they're black. And he says, just let you know, you hit like a girl. And I said, yeah, it looks like it. And but the next thing he said was, when you up at Cheyenne? And I told him whatever date I was up. And he said, me too. He said, would you haze for me?
Oh, dang, that's cool.
And I said, yeah, as long as you haze for me. And he said, deal.
Dang.
So, you know, 2 hours later,
right,
we're back buds again. And,
that's funny.
And here we go.
That's funny. And, I was just thinking, like, dang, it's a good thing there wasn't a Cowboy channel back then, much less social media. But I was thinking him riding into the box in the short go where, you know, somebody's commentating and it's like, ooh, wonder what happened this afternoon with Lynn.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been funny. That would have been funny.
Yeah.
So we get to Cheyenne over there, and my dad, I'd already called and told him about what happened and everything. And I'll never forget, my dad walked up there and to Lynn, he said, Lynn, tell me, who really had the low? And Lynn said, by golly, I did. And he said, well, I don't know if you did or not, but he said, you need to learn how to duck a little better. I know that. Oh, gosh.
Golly. I imagine there's a few people out there telling stories of when they got whipped when you stepped out of the pickup. Yeah.
Well, you know, rodeoing with Steve Duhon and Mike Smith and Marvin Dubose and them guys, I could fight a little bit, but them guys were scary.
Yeah.
Like they were tough, mean, tough. They'd whip 5 or 6 of me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they were in different category. And being 20, you know, 2 or 3 years old, rodeoing with them guys, kind of thinking I'm about half tough. You know, I got real tough when I was with them guys.
Right.
Yeah, heck yeah. I didn't have to worry about a whole lot, you know.
Man, steer wrestlers are just so notoriously known for being tough and able to throw down.
Well, some of them. There's a few of them you wouldn't want. You know, you wouldn't want Leonard behind your back. You want somebody a little tougher than he was. And I'm hoping he watches this one day so I can, hey, because he'll be calling me. You know, he always calls me about once a month now, and he'll say, you know, you can always tell a Texan. He said, but you can't tell them much.
Yeah.
You know, and we're really good friends. And he rode my horse in 2006 at the NFR and went out there and hung out in Hayes for him. He come down and stayed with us, and it's a good deal.
Yeah. What was the next NFR after 99?
You know, after 99, I got the big bright idea. You know, I paid too much mount money. I'm gonna find my own horses, get my own team, and I went to struggling. I went to trying to make me some horses, and so the next year I kind of popped out there, and I was like, I rode some good horses through the winter buildings and stuff, and I was that spring I thought, you know, I got a little yellow horse that I've started, and he's pretty good, and he's green though. I'm gonna take him, and man, and then I got to just thinking just because I was world champion last year that I guess they're gonna give me money.
Yeah, and
it ain't that way.
Yeah,
December 10th or whatever it is with that last day of the NFR. Guess what? It starts over.
Yeah, from
scratch. They don't care about that gold buckle no more.
Yeah, they can't just drop the flag for nothing.
No, no. And man, I got to struggling around there, and I thought, what in the world's happened? I went from the baddest dude alive to can't throw one down.
Yeah.
And just made some dumb choices on it. I should have stayed right in with Jimmy and them, riding Scooter or riding the best horse out there. And but I wanted to go have my own stuff and everything, and it took me a few years to build that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd go home, work a little bit, and go to some rodeos. And I had a kid This is kind of a cool story. Kid named Chad Muir. I was in Salt Lake City. I flew up there to that summer rodeo they had. And this kid sitting on back the box back there, he comes up and introduces himself. And he said, hey, do you ever let people come practice with you and stuff? I said, yeah. I said, all the time. I practice about every day I'm home. And he said, oh, cool. Well, that was it. I mean, I never seen this guy a day in my life before then, and I had a 3-minute conversation with him. About 2 months, I'm at home, and there's a horse shoer there in town. Steve Masters, he calls me and says, hey, there's a guy here at the vet clinic. I'm shooting a horse over at the vet clinic, and he's looking for your place. I said, who? He said, some kid from Idaho named Chad Muir. I said, I didn't remember him. I said, well, tell him where I live. Send him out here. I don't know who it is. Well, he shows up out there, and he said, you remember I talked to you there at Salt Lake, and you said that, I was like, you didn't think about maybe calling and seeing if you were going to be around or anything or what? He just headed from Idaho, and here he come down. So
dang,
he unloaded a yellow Palomino horse and 2 sorrels. And the next day we was practicing, and he jumped in there, and he tried to bulldog on this yellow horse, and he was horrible.
The horse?
The horse, both, but
yeah.
The kid had some ability, but he's just green, you know, but the horse was horrible. And he had a sorrel hazing horse that would try to buck you off. And you know, my dad always said, son, you got too much Crisco in you to be riding bucking horses, you know, and that's exactly right. I never was a bucking horse rider. Anyway, so I told him finally after about 2 weeks around there trying to practice on this yellow horse, I said, dude, I got a little horse here, ride him, turn that horse out in the pasture. He's done. You need to swap him off somewhere, whatever. So he turned him out, and that winter I'd been riding Casey Jones's horses. And hadn't got along too good when I think I went about 2,000 at Rapid City and some rodeos, and we was at Houston. And at Houston, I don't know if you ever heard of Ted and Linda Weesey. They had the Cowboy Bistro.
He's the
preacher. Yep.
Yeah.
So Ted and Linda, you know, they went up to all these bigger rodeos and set up, and Linda and them would cook, and Ted would preach. And so I got to be really good friends with them and stuff. And after the Houston rodeo that night, I hadn't won nothing in a while, and I don't know, I was probably 75th in the world standings, and just kind of struggling along there. And they was going to eat oysters that night at Papado's, and they invited me to go with them. And there was a gentleman, Bob, and I can't remember their last name. I just went blank. Bob and Judy from down in Louisiana that always helped them. And so I jumped in the rig with them, and we went to Papado's and ate oysters. Well, that night, when we got done, I noticed Judy didn't say nothing. The whole time we was eating, she never hardly even said nothing. We got back to their tent there where everybody keeps their horses at the rodeo ground, or the place where everybody keeps their horses at Houston.
Oh, she was one of the barrel racers from when you whipped Lynn. That's what happened.
Yeah, it might have been.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so we get in there, and we get back to that tent. She goes, Mickey, could I pray for you? Absolutely. Probably need all the prayers I can get, you know. And so we sat down in that tent, and all 4 of them laid hands on me and prayed for me. And she just kept praying about a horse. And so I get up, and Casey Jones had a big green Freightliner truck that we was rodeoing out of. And I was sleeping in the sleeper part of that truck. And I get in there, and I don't think I went to sleep all night. Just sitting there thinking about rodeo and about stuff. And this yellow horse that Chad Muir brought down from Idaho that I told him to turn out in the pasture because he's horrible kept coming to mind. And I thought, that horse is horrible. Why am I even thinking about that?
Dang.
So the next morning I get up and I call my dad. I said, hey, Dad, what do you think about that yellow horse of Chad's? He said, I wouldn't trade my pocket knife for him. He said, he's horrible. And I said, I agree, but the good Lord's telling me to try him. I can't get it out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, hey, whatever you want to do. And so I called Chad, and I said, hey, he was at home, you know, and I said, hey, do me a favor. And he said, what? And I said, get that yellow horse of yours up and go to legging him up.
He was now down by you?
He was living there. We had a little bunkhouse there, and he was living in our bunkhouse and staying there and practicing with us stuff and going to a few little jackpots and stuff with us. But Anyway, I said, get that yellow horse up and leg him up for a week or so. I'll be home in about 7-8 days. So he got him, rode him there 4, 5, 6 times, and I got home and run about 5 or 6 practice steers on him. And my dad said, what?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like night and day. This sucker just back in there and just done the dirty. And Jeff Babbitt and Kurt Golding and Blake Miniman, they were rodeoing with me at that time.
Maybe April by then?
Yeah, probably April, mid-spring, and we went to Huntsville. I went like 3,500, 4,000 at Huntsville. Kurt went around. Jeff placed 3rd, 4th in average, something we all won good checks on him. The first 5 or 6 rodeos we took him to, we all won good checks.
Dang.
And Dad told me, he said, you better get that sucker bought because somebody's going to be noticing this deal and they're going to get him bought. Somebody's going to buy him.
Yeah.
So I called Chad, or I talked to Chad there, and he said, well, you had to call my dad. His dad's Greg up in Idaho. So I called Greg, and I was like, what do you want for him? He said, I want $25,000 for him. Well, I didn't have $25,000 to buy a horse at that time. I hadn't won nothing in a while other than little checks around there. And anyway, he
no offense at all to anybody in this story, but I mean, was he $25,000 if you'd have bought him before you did all that winning? Because it sounds
he was $1,500 horse. I mean, you need to go with the booty to the sale barn and ride him through there and hope you get $2,500.
Gotcha.
But so I told him, I said, well, dude, Greg, listen to me. I said, I need that horse, and your boy's living with me down here. I'm teaching him how to bulldog. We're doing stuff. That's got to be worth
Maybe there's something we can do.
That's got to be worth a little bit of a trade. He said, well, what are you thinking? I said, I'd give $12,500 for him today.
There you go.
And he said,
yeah,
give me my money.
Yeah.
So I called my wife. I'm like, well, I just bought that yellow horse. She said, for how much? I said, $12,500. She goes, oh my gosh. I said, how'd you buy him? I said, well, I called my neighbor and he co-signed a note at the bank for me on a 6-month note. Dang. She said, well, how we can't pay for him in 6 months. What do you, I said, hey, don't count this fat kid out.
Yeah.
I said, it'll be all right. I'll figure it out somehow. Well, that was in 2000, the spring, or about the May, probably June. Probably about June when I got him bought, I think. And the month of July.
Of 01 or?
No, 03.
Oh, okay, so it had been a few years.
Yeah, it's been a few years. Cool. That's why I say it took me a little while after I got to riding Jimmy's horses to kind of put a deal together and get, so this yellow horse come along. I bought him in June. In July, I went to 14 rodeos, and I placed at the first 13.
Wow.
And Cheyenne was one of them. I won Cheyenne that year. I won $24,000.
Dang.
At Cheyenne riding. We called him Wasp. And this horse he just fit me. And Jeff Babbitt won a pile on him. Kurt won a pile on him. Then Blake Miniman, he was pretty young then. He come along. He won a pile on him. And I had a really good hazing horse that we had. They called him Stranger. He's still alive today. He's 34 years old now. Got him there at the house. But Wasp would take a big step. He wouldn't. And sometimes you had to be there to help. And I always tell him that sorrel hazing horse is what made him so good because you could move his,
The sorrel of Chad's?
No, the sorrel of mine.
Okay.
I had a sorrel hazing horse called Stranger. And anyway, he was so broke and could run so much, you could just move cattle wherever you wanted. And if you just step him at that bulldogging horse, just a half a step, and he took that big step out of your way, man, you could throw cattle fast.
So when you say that, you mean like y'all come out and everything shifts left just a little bit?
Well, you want your bulldogging horse to cow to that steer and run right up their back. And when you turn loose that saddle horn to catch their horns, you want them to take a big step left.
Oh, gotcha. After you turn loose.
After you turn loose. You don't want them to do it before because then you get stretched out.
Then you're too far.
And doing it. But when you turn loose, and what that does when that horse takes that big step, it lands your feet right over here perfect. If your feet land over here straight, then you've got to take the time to slow down and bring the steer and get him around your body.
Is the step him changing leads?
Him changing leads.
Yeah, so he'll go at him in a right, and then
he'll hustle to him that right, and then
yeah,
you want him to peel out of there that left. And sometimes he would do it a little bit too quick. He would get quick, what you call it.
So you're just holding him right
Just ride
until
him up
you let
in there.
go. Gotcha.
And I think that's reason I won so much money on him is because I knew that, and I knew I had to hustle and ride him to them cattle, and it made me be more aggressive, even catching cattle.
Oh, dang.
You see what I'm saying?
I can see that, yeah, for sure.
Kind of like riding a calf horse.
I better get this done because he's about to go left.
Yeah, or riding a calf horse that's short. I mean, it makes you really ride in there because, if you get to kind of sitting on your butt, he'll take the throw away from you. It's kind of the same thing with a bulldogging horse, but you want one that'll take that step and be honest about it, But anyway, so that hazing horse made him. But one Cheyenne and Jeff Babbitt was rodeoing me, and he's like, man, I hadn't won much. I'm going home.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, keep rodeoing with me because he'd been hazing for me on my sorrel horse, and I didn't really have nobody else out to haze for me. But I ended up going on and ended up making the finals that year.
Dang.
And anyway, and I rode him out there. And the cool thing about it is my dad hazed for me out there.
Oh, neat.
So I got to have my own horses. I trained that hazing horse. The yellow horse had already been bull-dogged on, but I feel like that we took him to the next level, you know, and then got to take him out there to the NFR, ride my own horses, and had my dad haze for me.
How neat.
So, and I won the average out there that year in that third in the world.
Wow. Yeah, I guess what did it take to make the NFL? What did 15th win that time of rodeoing?
15th spot going in was probably 57 or 8,000, somewhere in there, close to 60 probably.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first year I made them in 99 was about 55. Then I think in 2008 about 60.
Gotcha.
Is the bottom hole.
Yeah. And you getting your start going in July.
Yeah.
Probably had you behind the 8 ball as far as winning the world at least.
Yeah, that year, they changed it. It was 100 rodeo count you could count, and then they changed it that year to 50. So you could only count 50 rodeos. So a lot of them rodeos that spring that I had went to that I was kind of, I guess you could say, trying this horse or get him going or whatever.
You'd counted.
I didn't count.
Oh, gotcha.
Because they were the smaller rodeos.
Oh, like Huntsville.
Well, I did count Huntsville, but there was a lot of them like Henderson, Texas, and there was a lot of them, a lot of the Marshall, Texas we went to down there. I didn't count them rodeos. And, I'd win 1,000, 1,200 at them, whatever, but I didn't have them counted. So when I got into the month of July, about the 1st of July, I didn't have probably, $4,000 or $5,000 for one.
Man, that count thing is so difficult to navigate, or the thought of. I haven't had to navigate it, but the thought of, watching Jacobs and all that, like what to count, what not to count, especially like him, and he was never too good to go to anything. He'll enter the stockyards,
sure,
and he bought his UPRA card the same year that he won the world, and but guys like that I don't know if this is my phone, sure is. Yeah, look, Branquino. Guys like that.
You should have answered it.
Oh, yeah. I've already ignored it.
That's
Dang,
all right.
I should have answered
That's
it.
all right.
That would have been funny. Yeah, guys like that just really want to go, would it just seems like such a waste of, anyway, I don't know. I don't understand it.
No, and that year, counting 50 rodeos, I feel like was the worst thing they ever could have done for the little rodeos because
you're not going to go to
we
them.
skipped a lot of them. Yeah. We, them little rodeos, it hurt them because your top guys, they was ducking them. We might go to a few of them just because they was right there handy, and still had to gather up a little money, pay the light bill or fuel bill or whatever. But, but we didn't go to them like, kind of had it mapped out where we was going to go. And that's, so I think that was the worst thing they could have ever done. And it made it harder on us because the 50 rodeos, you had to be, of course, you're going to count all the biggest 50 rodeos there is, so it's not a big strategy or nothing, but it's still trying to get to all them bigger rodeos.
So you didn't, that was 2003. Oh, so I guess Cooper, he's just now 18. Is he your oldest?
No, I got a daughter, Hadley. She's 21 now. So,
okay.
Yeah, and Cooper's just 18.
So in 03, you still don't have kids yet.
Yep. Nope.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha.
We're still freewheeling. And I got engaged to my wife in 2000 or 99. Yeah, 99. I got engaged in 99 and we got married in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, then from 2000, then we had Hadley in 2004 and then Cooper in 2007.
Nice.
Yeah.
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 That changed the way you rodeo?
It did. You know, Hadley got up there old enough to really talk and 3 or 4 years old. And I'll never forget, I was at Estes Park, Colorado, and I just won the first round and won the average. It was Saturday night, won the Bulldog and win 4,000 or 5,000. And I called home and was like, "Hey, Daddy won some money." And she said, "Daddy, will you please come home?" And I was like, "Girl, don't do that to me. I'll be on the airplane in the morning. Please don't do that to me right now, you know." And it was just them phone calls. And then, you know, Cooper come along and had a boy and they were, you know, my daughter just loved horses and was riding and roping and barrel racing and doing stuff. And my wife would have to take her, my wife and my dad and stuff. And I'd be calling, "Well, how'd she do?" You know, and they'd send me videos and I finally just was like, you know what? I've had my time.
Yeah.
I've done what I want to do. I have nothing else to prove to nobody.
Right.
I'm going home. And I'm going to go home and I'm just going to rodeo around closer to home, circuit rodeo a little bit. And that's when I was, I don't remember where we was, but Benny Butler called me. Said, "Hey, I see you're up at Austin tonight." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, Shannon Stalls, somebody passed away in his family and he's got to go to a funeral. Can you come over and help Josh pick up? Can you, you know?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be there. Ain't no problem." So I jumped on and helped Josh Edwards pick up there for a couple perfs.
That was back when all you needed was a RCA card.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, that deal's changed. So got over there and about 2 weeks later, he called me and said, "Hey, I got Jasper down here. Anyway, you can go help us at Jasper?"
Was that your first time to pick up?
No, I'd picked up around just jacking around some ranch rodeos and different stuff, you know. Daryl Wine's a good friend of mine at home. Everybody calls him Wild Horse. He had a little rodeo company for a while and put on a bunch of ranch rodeos around. I picked up for him and just jacking around, you know. And so when Benny called me about Jasper, I said, "Ben, yes, I'll come help you.
Dang.
But we need to have a talk before I come help you.
Yeah.
Because all this screaming, hollering, bull crap that you do, I'm not going to go for it."
Yeah.
I said, I'm no professional pickup man. I said, so if I'm doing something you don't like or you see any change, let's just talk about it. But don't scream and holler at me because it ain't going to be good for either one of us.
Dang.
So we can handle this like men, you know. And so I got down there to Jasper and picked up that weekend for him and had a blast. You know, if you don't have fun with Benny Butler, it's your own fault.
Yeah.
Have you ever been around Benny much?
My dad and uncle picked up for him back in the day. They mainly worked for C-Bar-T.
Yeah.
And then the first time I was around him, I was getting on a bareback horse in Phillipsburg, Kansas. And he rode by in the grand entry and said, "Pull him." And so I pulled my horse. And he came after the grand entry. He walked up to run the neck rope. And he was like, "Why is your horse pulled?" And I said, "Well, you told me to." I said, he said, "I told you to roll him." And I thought he said, pull him. And I was like, "Here it comes. That's what I've heard about. Here it comes." And he goes, "It's all right. Just roll him." And I was like, "Okay." And he just let it go.
Yeah.
And I guess it ended up being a horse that it didn't really matter. So anyway, but that was my first intro to Benny. But.
Yeah. Well, I had a blast with him, and like I say, it all started right there at Austin, then Jasper, and then I went on to Vernon and went up there and picked up. Of course, that's not in my hometown over there, you know.
Was Rump working for him at this time?
No, yeah, well, kinda. So Rump was our saddle horse guy.
Okay.
He helped us saddle, drove a truck.
Yeah.
You know, he was kind of do it all guy. Of course, me and Rump, we go way back. Come up, stay with this Bulldog. Well, Rump Bulldog, Bulldog pretty good.
Wrestler.
Yeah. And Bulldog good.
Yeah.
Big stout son of a gun. That's before he got fat.
Right.
And but he Bulldog really good and was a good cowboy and could do anything.
Yeah.
And but he would be around Benny and them. He'd show up in a $600 car. The wheel's about to fall off of it, motor about blowed up in it. And he said, "Oh, you some bucks." He said, "Y'all got them $1,000 a month payments on them pickups." He said, "I give $600 for my whole car." And that was just his. That's the way Rump went around. And anyway, he was a hoot.
Yeah.
But no, that was kind of right as he was. I always kid everybody he was Benny's saddle horse boy.
Yeah.
And but then. I guess I picked up for Benny from about 2009 till 2011.
Going to all of them?
I went to all of them except Greeley.
Yeah.
During Greeley over the 4th, I always went to some rodeos and Bulldog over the 4th. And I'd pick back up at Pretty Prairie and Phillipsburg and Lawton and go right on from there.
Yeah.
And
man, you might have been, I don't know what year it was. You might have been picking up at Phillipsburg that year.
Possibly could have been. Them guys up there, that Phillipsburg, that's a cool little fun rodeo.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I fought bulls at Mesquite just like 2 months earlier, because it's like July, isn't it? Phillipsburg.
Yeah.
Anyway, later in the summer, but earlier in the summer, I'd fought bulls and I met Trevor, and then I parked next to him at Phillipsburg, and he remembered my name. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And anyways, that Phillipsburg and then there's what else? Dodge City. And then another Abilene.
Abilene, Kansas.
And I made that little circle.
Hill City, Kansas. There's all of them.
Went to Hill City. It was raining. Yep. Yeah. Anyways, fun little.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it is a cool rodeo. That was like the kind of a bowl type stadium, the way it's set up, and they're covered. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Hey, old son, Total Feeds has been powering Radiator Ranch for over a decade. It kept Boone going, gave him an extra 8 years on his life, I know. If you don't feed Total Feeds, you ain't no cowboy. I was feeding it long before they sponsored me, and I'll be feeding it long after they drop me. Look out for horse treats coming soon to Total Feeds.
So neat. Those, the
but
committee...
Then it sounds like you fell right back into kind of rodeoing.
Well, yeah. I would enter the bulldogging at all them rodeos I was picking up with Benny, and then in 2011, we started off there. Well, I was picking up at Austin for him there, and I won big money at Austin, got to Tucson, won big money at Tucson, and just everywhere I was picking up, then I'd slip off, wherever I could around and enter something else that week, we didn't have rodeo or something. And that summer, it come time to go to Greeley. I told Benny, I said, "Hey," I said, "Man, I'm like 40th in the world right now." And I said, "But I want to go over the 4th of July and see what happens." Damn, you're going to quit me. I don't want to do that. Damn it. How Benny gets wired up there. And I said, "Dude, I'd have to win 25,000, to have a shot."
Yeah, calm down.
It's all right. I'll be back, and he said, "Well, you little bastard." And anyway, so
you should have told him, "Don't be mad at me."
Yeah.
That's what he says at the end.
Yeah, don't be mad at me now.
Don't be mad at me now.
Hey, big boy, don't be mad at me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they got somebody else take my spot there at Greeley, and I went to about 10 or 12 rodeos and won 25,000.
Dang. Right what you needed.
So I come back and I said, "Well, Benny, I'm 10th in the world now." "I told you, I knew that's what you was going to do, you little sorry son." I said, "What am I going to do?" And I said, "I'm not quitting you." I said, "But be finding somebody to replace me for this fall." I said, "I'll go to Pretty Prairie and I'll go to Lawton. That's the next 2 weeks." And I said, "But then I need to be on the trail." And he said, "All right, dang it, I get it." Anyway, I ended up 15th in the world that year.
Dang. Perfect.
And so made NFR. And me and Stan Branco was just battling for that 15th spot. And
what year did you say this was? 11?
That was 2011. And I think Poway, California was my last rodeo. Maury Tate had, I think, Ada, Oklahoma up there, I think is where he had. And I was supposed to go there, and that was my last two. And I went like fourth at Ada, went like 700. And Stan, that night at Poway, has the best one draw. And Luke called me as soon as he got done with the Bulldog and said, well, looks like you're in. Stan had the best one and throwed him out of his arms.
What do you mean throwed him out of? Oh,
he
whenever he turned him over.
He was so quick handling, like he was a 3-second steer and 5 somethings winning the Bulldogging. All you got to do is catch him, throw him down.
Yeah.
And he slung him out of his arms, get away from him.
Dang.
And so he got a no time. So anyway, Luke called me and said, man, you made it. And of course, Stan's I don't know if you know Stan Branco, but he's good as some gun as you want to be around, you know. So I kind of hated it for him too, you know, because I don't think at that time he'd ever made NFR, you know. But I didn't hate it too bad for him that I wanted to go too. But it was cool that in 2011 I had my own horses again, and then my kids got to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'd heard about all this stuff, but they never got to witness it.
Yeah.
And now they got to go out there, and we took all our whole family, my mom, my dad, everybody.
Much different experience.
Yeah. And so made the finals in 2011, come back, picked up for Benny starting that year again. And at Tucson, I had to call my wife, and I said, I'm done. She said, what do you mean? I said, I'm done. I said, I'm coming home. I'm missing too much of what them kids have got going on. And I said, I'm done. I'm coming home. She said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
So she had seen Harry Patterson's daughter, Ashley, and her went to school together, and she had seen her somewhere a week or so after this. And she goes, hey, you think your dad would need help doing anything? And she goes, I'll tell him. Well, that Sunday, short round, that Sunday afternoon, short rounds at 1 o'clock out there at Tucson, that afternoon, we started loading trucks to head out of there. And Harry calls me, and I say, hey, dude, I'm loading trucks right now for Benny Butler. I don't need to be on this telephone, you know. I didn't want to get a butt chewing, you know. And so anyway, I got off the phone, and he said, well, come to my office Monday morning. I said, okay. So I went up there and met him Monday morning, and he said, well, I don't know what me and you're going to do, but you're hired. He said, we'll do something. So I called Benny, and I said, hey, Austin probably my last rodeo. And so I went to Austin and picked up there to Austin in 2012. And when I got down there, I come home, and the only thing I did is went to Calgary up there that year, and that was my last rodeo.
Dang. That's funny. I had a similar, you had to call Benny and quit the first time because you were making the NFR, and he was upset at you. I had a similar conversation with Sammy Andrews. I was fighting bulls for him, and I realized, like, man, there's not anybody that I knew of in the history of rodeo that made it to the NFR in a rodeo competing event and the bullfighting. And I enjoyed fighting bulls, but not as much as I enjoyed riding broncs. And so I struggled for a couple of weeks before Belton to call Sammy Andrews, who is, at the time for me, he was as intimidating as Benny was from what I, just look. Sammy doesn't talk as much. Once he does, he's more of a sweetheart than Benny. But anyways, I was super intimidated. And when I called him and I was like waiting for it and let him down, he'd be mad. And he was like, oh, that's all right. Well, just try to enter our rodeos. And I remember thinking, like, man, and he had a bullfighter for Belton, like, a couple days later, I'm sure a phone call later. And I was like, he does not miss me much. I really thought it was funny how upset Benny is at you for quitting, and Sammy was almost relieved that I quit in the bullfighting.
Well, that don't say much for your bullfighting.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, man, he was much more relieved, almost relieved that I'm not fighting for him anymore. But yeah. Anyways, yeah.
I got tickled. Sammy called me, and of course, Sammy and I are really good friends. And he called me to pick up over to Altus for him. He had the rodeo over to Altus, Oklahoma. Yeah. And so Benny didn't have nothing going on, so I went over to pick up for Sammy. And you talk about two different rodeo companies.
Yeah.
You know, I get tickled at Ben. I always say, you tightwad. You know, we'd get up in the morning, we'd feed stock for Benny, waller around there, clean on stuff. We'd get the shaps out, clean all the shaps up. We'd polish bits. He was going to make sure you was doing something that day to make, you know, you wasn't going to get to slouch much.
Right.
We was going to be working. We was going to wash the trucks. We was going to wash out the feed troughs. We was going to do something all day.
Yeah.
So Sammy called me, and I went over to Altus. That morning, we all met up there and fed everything, 30, 45 minutes, had everything fed. And I said, we went to breakfast, had breakfast, headed back. I said, well, what y'all got planned? What we going to do the rest of the day, you know? And he said, nothing, I'll see you about 5 o'clock.
Start sorting stock.
I said, at 5 o'clock, he said, yeah, so y'all don't do nothing. Nah, just hang out, whatever, go to your room, whatever. I was like, well, this is a little different than Ben Butler's outfits, you know.
Funny. Which sometimes they take stock to Alta also,
Yeah.
So maybe you saw him.
Yeah. So anyway, Ben come down there because I told him, I said, they sent some horses down there, and I said, send me a couple pickup horses. I need a couple more pickup horses down there. So he sent me a couple of pickup horses to use down there. And but yeah, I was like, you know, Ben, he sorts about 1:30 if it's a 7 o'clock perf, and puts everything on kind of dry lot, you know. Yeah. And which is a good idea. I like that idea. And then Sammy was down there, and then we started sorting at 5. And everything's been on water and feed. And I told Sammy, I said, man, you don't sort them things earlier and dry lot them and everything? He said, nah. He said, if they going to buck, they going to buck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, I guess you're right. So anyway, he knows because he got a lot of buckers.
He's known for his bulls, but his horses are underrated. Like, they're so good too, you know.
Yeah.
But I think the bulls just overshadow him.
Bodacious has overshadowed his horse.
Everything.
Yep, I agree.
I thought what was fun for me, and I think maybe the first rodeo I might have fought for them. Well, no, it wouldn't have been the first because Belton's earlier, but Longview in April, and I was fighting, and me and Scotty Spencer, but James would stay on one side to flank, and then Sammy be on the other side. That way nobody had to crawl over the alley. And James say, hey, go tell Dad we're coming here next. And I go across the alley, you know, and Sammy be like, no, tell him we're starting over here. And I went back and forth 3 or 4 times. I was like, can y'all just meet in the middle? Because they started getting mad at each other, but I was the messenger. Oh, man, but James and I got to be pretty tight. So not tight enough for him to sell me Fire Lane, but anyway, he told me he'd give me Fire Lane, but I could only buck him one time and then retire him. I was like, come on now. I mean, it's the beaches of Winnebago.
Right, exactly.
But anyway.
Yeah, Sammy's a good day. We've had many golf games together. I like to play a little golf, and he likes to play golf. And
who else had you picked up with?
Picked up with?
Or for, I'm sorry.
That's pretty much it, just Benny and him. And then after I kind of quit and everything, then do you know the champions, Bob Champion, national champion, so Boogie Ray called me.
With Stace?
Yeah, well, Boogie called me down there, and he said, man, I was supposed to help the champions up there at Henrietta at Pioneer Reunion, you know. That's kind of our hometown rodeo. And he said, hey, I ain't going to get to come. He says, any way you could help them over there? And I said, yeah, I can help them. So I started helping them for, I don't know, another 3 or 4 years.
Was that might have been, I remember, what happened that year at Henrietta whenever I just remember a bunch of blood on your face.
Yeah. Gosh dang it, what's his name? I just went blank. Little bareback rider, little short, furnished some bareback horses around.
Hibbler, maybe?
No.
No.
No, I made NFR, bareback rider. No.
I'm trying to remember.
Little short, stocky. My gosh, I know him like he's my brother. Anyhow, he brought some horses up there for Bob and him at Henrietta.
Oh, Wes Stevenson.
Wes Stevenson.
Oh, he brought the horses. Yeah.
Had him up there west. And I had a pickup horse that was blind in one eye. And the first horse, he kind of humped up around there a little bit. Well, that next horse come out, and I just reached and cut him down the hind leg with my lat rope and went to the circle. Well, when I cut him down the leg, he kind of like, here we go now. And when I got to that horse picked up and was coming to me, and I picked this pickup horse up, trying to get out of his way. And that horse hit me just as we was in the air, kind of changing into the left lead, and knocked my pickup horse down and rolled over top of me.
That's right.
And when he rolled over top of me, that bucking horse come to me just like a bull and stomped me, kicked me, stomped me, trying to bite me. And then there's 4 or 5 guys running out there trying to whoop him off of me, got him away from me, and he turned around and come right back, just like a fighting bull.
Yeah.
And was a bad dude and ripped my shirt off, blacked my eye, busted my lip, you know.
But you stayed out there.
Oh, yeah. I
I remember that.
Hell, we ain't bred to quit,
Yeah.
you know.
I forgot about that. Now that you tell the story, I can remember the TC Long was announcing.
Yep.
He was talking about that horse coming after you. I remember that now.
And then after the deal, West came in there. He said, "Dude, I'm sorry." He said, "I'm telling you." He said, "That's somebody back here. You gotta be back here trying to sort him."
Yeah.
He said, "This almost like a fighting bull." He said, "He's bad."
Dang.
And it was just a bad night to get your horse fall down on you. You can get underneath to somebody like
just
that.
the one horse. Yeah.
And you know, thinking back, I probably stayed more crippled picking up broncs than I ever did bulldogging.
Dang.
In the short 5 years that I picked up broncs.
Turning ankles back and just bumping into your legs?
Well, that and just fingers, you know, reaching, jamming fingers.
Yeah.
Benny had a big black ballface horse that called him Spade, and the queens and the flaggers, the judges rode him and stuff, and he got to humping up with them. So I told Benny, I said, "Put that sunbuck in my string, let me sort on him for a day or two." It's at Tucson. And I said, I'll ride him around there and jerk him around and get him back right. So that morning I catch old Spade and I sorted on him. We were sorting about daylight that morning for that 1 o'clock perf, and rode Spade all morning, left him saddled, got over there, and we had about a 2-hour break before rodeo. And I told Shannon, I said, "I'm going to pick up broncs on him today." And they'd picked up on him before. And the first bronc, I catch this bronc, and this bronc ain't bucking really enough for this kid to get off, you know. And he kind of just on his ass there, and about half on the bronc, half on me. And I throwed Shannon the bronc rein. I said, "Here," and I throwed him bronc rein, just going to kind of peel out there and let him sit down. And when I did, I guess this guy hit him with a spur back there or something, but this black sucker blowed up. And he hit him about 2 big jumps out there, and I thought, "You weak-hearted sucker." And I reared back, and I hung him in the shoulder with a spur. And that was the worst thing I ever did. This black sunbuck got serious about it, and he bucked me off. I mean, hard.
Dang.
And it ended up knocking a rib out of place. Well,
When you spurred him?
No.
Oh, your rib.
Not my rib out of place. Yeah, not his. Not his. I was trying to, but no, it knocked my rib out of place. Well, I get back on him, I catch him, I get back on him. I'm sitting there. Luckily, there's 3 pickup men there at Tucson. I'm sitting there by the bucket chutes, and Benny looked at me, and I guess I was white as a ghost. He said, "You ain't all right, are you?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he said, "Come here." So they got me off, and the Justin Sports Medicine guys got to me, and I was back there behind the bucket chutes, and I can't catch my air. I can't breathe. And it felt like somebody's got a big knife stuck right in my back. So I'm sitting there, and I remember there being some mutton busting chutes there, and I could mash kind of up against some mutton busting chutes and get a little bit of relief. Finally, they got me in the Justin Sports Medicine trailer, and there was a Chinese doctor that was there that's supposed to be the main guy of the world doctor-wise. And he come in there, and he had him load me in an ambulance because he thought I had punctured a lung, you know, broke a rib and punctured a lung. So they give me an ambulance, haul me to the hospital, and get to the hospital. And I'll never forget it. That whole ride over this ambulance, I'll never forget. His name is Brandon, a young kid, paramedic. And every time they'd hit a bump, you know how rough them ambulances are anyway. They'd hit a bump, and I'd squeal like a little girl, and he'd just hang with me, hang on. But he was pain. He thought I was dying too, you know. And they get there. When they unload me out of this ambulance, there was probably 20 people. When that bed hit the ground, they were hooking lines to me like I was like going to die any second. And there was 20 people hauling me into this trauma room. And
he had warned them that y'all were coming.
Yeah, they warned, and I mean, they was ready.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was happening for sure, you know. And they get me in this room, and this doctor says, give him whatever pain medicine, you know. And he comes back in about 3 or 4 minutes. How's that feel, big boy? And I said, man, I'm hurting. He said, give him the second dose. He said, you're fixing not hurt. And I mean, when they give me that second dose, I just,
What was it?
I don't have a clue.
Dang, I wish we could
I
find
know.
out.
We need to know what that is. But I was like, holy moly. I said, that's the best stuff wow. I said, I could kiss you. And about that time, this nurse came in there and she put one of the big x-ray boards behind my back, rolled me up. And when she rolled me back over, it popped like a shotgun. And she jumped and said, what was that? I was like, I don't know. But I said, I don't know what you did, but that felt better than anything I ever felt in my life. And anyway, so kind of find out I had a rib out of place. And when she laid me down on that thing, that medicine, I guess, had me relaxed enough, it popped that rib back
Oh,
in.
dang. Yeah.
So about 2 hours, I lay around up there, and here comes Benny. Hey, big boy, what do you think? You going to make it?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I think I'm going to make it. I said, heck, I feel pretty good now, Ben. He said, well, they're wanting you to stay overnight where they can. I said, Benny, I ain't staying overnight.
Yeah.
I said, I'm ready to get out of here. Let's go. He said, well, big boy, you sure? And I said, yeah. So anyways, all right, let's go. Well, 2 hours before this, I got 20 people hooking stuff up to me, machines that I was fixing to die. 2 hours later, I slipped my cowboy boots back on and we head out the door.
Thank God.
And I thought, you know what? Them people up there probably thought I was just one of them crackheads coming here for some drugs, or something. I thought that was funny because they was all looking at me like, wasn't you about to die like 2 hours ago?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Dang.
yeah, but I picked up there, and the next year we was running the hardest we could run. And when I caught a horse, I got him daddied a little bit too tight.
Mm-hmm.
And we was running, that ring at Tucson, is 2 miles
Huge.
long, it seems like. And we're one end headed to the other, and we're going as fast as we could go. And this horse jumps in there, bucks over here, and he falls. And when he falls, he just falls right up under my horse, and we just
You both fall.
just
Dang.
wrecked, flipping down through there, and anyway. Yeah.
My dad picked up, and for Charlie back in the day, a little bit of Benny, a little bit of Harry, and then took a little hiatus and came back, and for Stace a little bit, but when he died, and then before he died, he was picking up at Helotes when he died. That was for Sammy Catalina at the time.
Do you have a wreck or something, or what happened to him?
No, he had a heart attack. Yeah.
Be darn.
And I came. It was cool. I came back the next year, on May 2nd. He died May 2nd, 2013, and then I fought my first rodeo for Sammy Andrews in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I was always in Helotes with my dad. And so, anyways, Jacobs Crawley was in the arena and called me. And anyway, but the next year it was May 2nd, and I picked up that perf for Sammy Andrews at the time, just 1 year later. And that was cool. But that's how I had remembered that, like, you just had to have a PRCA card.
Right.
Yep. But
when did they change that? You remember what year?
I feel like it was just like several years ago, like around COVID time-ish. I don't know. That's just when I started to hear.
Yeah.
Because I know that JB had picked up somewhere, and it had kind of caused a stir, which he's a good pickup man. But
Sure.
but that was when I began to hear, like, you had to be approved. And I think that was about.
Well, what do they do if somebody gets hurt like that?
Yeah. Surely there's
Some kind of clause in there or
Surely.
something that you can grab somebody to.
like my
Fill
dad,
in.
he didn't come back from that one 2 hours after.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But I want to say Robbie Hodges ended up picking up the rest of that
Oh
perf.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Robbie.
Yeah, especially on my dad's horses. Because my dad's horses were not, but
You said a mouthful right there when you said Robbie Hodges.
yeah. I got in the barrel at Bucktown at Buck Jam, and Robbie's been calling me ever since because I all but got knocked out at that first one, and Robbie's been calling me. But yeah, that's a goober. I love
Robbie, Pretty Prairie, Kansas. I guess we can kind of tell what we want to on here, can't we?
Oh yeah, and we can edit it out later.
Okay.
We probably won't have to with Robbie.
Well,
He won't care.
I can't get, nobody can get as rank as Robbie. You know, when you hire Robbie, you're just always kind of on that line of like, is he going to get us in trouble or not? You know what I mean? Well, is it Pretty Prairie, Kansas? And I mean, Pretty Prairie, Kansas is
Nothing.
white people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
that too.
There's no
Yeah.
Afro-Americans in Pretty Prairie, Kansas.
Right.
But there was one that night, and it was about a 20-year-old black girl. And Robbie just runs over to the fence and follows this girl all the way down the fence, just looking at her, just follow. And finally gets under the fence and, where'd you come from?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, you didn't just do that or say that, Robbie. Are you kidding me? The only black girl, and she was cute, and she just laughed and went on with it, like we
sport.
should, you know what I mean?
She was a good sport about it.
But I'm like, Robbie, why did you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought about it. But
Yeah.
first time I met Robbie was at Lufkin, Texas. After the rodeo, we stepped around there, and me and Jeff Babbitt put our horses up, and we was parked just right there by his clown trailer. And it had a ramp, fold down ramp on the back of it, and it had rained there. Anyway, that ramp was slick. Well, I'd had 2 or 3 beers there, and anyway, I started up that ramp, going to sit there. He had his guitar out, going to pick and sing a minute, and I started up that ramp, and my feet went out from under me, and I hit the back of my head on that trailer. Anyway, Robbie said, "Yeah, I'm the only barrel man ever knocked Mickey G out."
That would be his claim to fame.
Yeah. He said, "I'm the only barrel man ever knocked Mickey G out."
Golly, that's funny. Yeah. I need to have Robbie on. I think he just lives in Granbury now.
What a hoot.
Yeah.
He is so fun.
Yeah. Him and then Sosby. Whenever I was fighting bulls for Stace, I'd go to Mesquite every weekend back when it was a 2-day rodeo. And Sosby was already always there. And when it was a 2-day rodeo every weekend in the summer, you'd be there. Obviously, Friday night was the night because the whole crew and everybody, 8 Second Club. And yeah, anyways, Hodges would come through there. But yeah, Saturday, everybody leaves.
Yeah,
but Friday nights in Mesquite
was the deal.
It's probably better that they made it a one-night rodeo just to get us all out of the 8 Second Club. But I try to pick up a little now. We got a little pin at that. It's just 150 long, and so it's pretty easy to cut stuff off. But every now and then I go down to the ranch rodeo at San Antonio and pick up with.
Yeah, I've seen you on there picking up time.
Yeah, it reminds me. It really humbles me, because in this 150-foot pen, you get to thinking you can do this. Mm-hmm. And I got a horse from Clint Hale, and so he's kind of does it for you. Mm-hmm. And plus I'm in a 150-foot pen. And then I go down there in San Antonio. I was like, oh yeah, maybe it's a little harder than with real broncs in a big pen, because all my horses here are 20 years old, and they're just like, they like the pickup horse.
Yeah, they come to you.
But I've always said, I think the most cowboy guys in the arena are the pickup men, and then probably when it comes to cowboy skills, calf ropers.
Yeah.
That's a lot. You got to do a lot. But I think the pickup men are up there.
Definitely. You got to be able to read them horses, and I mean, there's just a lot to it.
Yeah.
And you ain't picking up $500 killer pen horses,
Right.
And the difference of Benny and Sammy, different people like you to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
I see sometimes people catch a horse and kind of just pull him around there and nearly stop him, and you better not be stopping one of Benny's.
Mm-mm.
You better keep that stomach rolling and going, and
Yeah.
there's just different things that different people like and way you do it.
Don't let them stop.
No.
Yeah.
And, like roping bulls, people, there's more to it than, when you're roping a $40,000 bull.
Yeah.
You kind of,
Yeah.
you ain't going to just take off with him, cripple him, and,
Yeah, a guy called me the other day to rope bulls, and I was like, man, I'm really better as the third pickup man, where like it's, those two guys are in charge, and then if we got a hopper, I'll sneak in occasionally, but I don't know, being the point man on roping bulls at a big bull riding, like you said, $40,000 bull, I don't know.
I got tickled. We was at Hinton, Oklahoma one year, and me and Shannon was picking up there, and Shannon had hurt his shoulder. And Rhett, of course, I think the world of Rhett Butler. He's just he's just a cool dude. You know what I mean? Rhett's just
same.
And one thing about it, you know, somebody's got your back too. You know what I mean? He's just a good dude. And anyway, Rhett was flanking them bulls there at Hinton, and Shannon's shoulder was hurt, so I was bucking a bunch of them younger bulls, and it seemed like we had to rope half of them.
Yeah.
And Shannon's shoulder was hurt. He said, "Man, you're gonna rope all of it." So anyway, I roped nearly every one of them. Well, he had his black bull, fertility bull. I don't even remember which one he was, but anyway, boy about hung up to him and stuff, and I rolled in there and just hang it on him and left there with him to get him away from that boy. And Red said, dang, hang on. He said, man, don't rope them fertility bulls if you don't have to and everything. I said, hell, Red, I can't tell no difference in your fertility bulls and your other bulls.
Yeah, they all look rodeo.
They all look the same to me, you know. But he said, what do you mean? He said, anyway, I was just jagging with you, Red.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Anyway.
So now it's just auctioneering.
Yeah. Rodeo deal's over, and, you know, I miss my friends. I miss the people, and I miss the competition. But I do not miss having to drive 10 hours.
Yeah, Bradley Harder and I were talking about it at a booth in Houston the year after he retired, and he was like, man, it's not the bucking horses. If they'd bring them to me, I'd still be rodeoing. And I was like, dang, that's the best way to put it.
Yep. Yeah, if they could have all of them in Wichita Falls.
Yeah, in Wichita Falls.
I'd still be entered, you know.
Right.
But I just, you know, being gone and
plus you're going to a party. And that's why I tell some of these young guys, I was like, this needs to be an income before you get married, before you have kids, because you're going to that town's party. And if you have to tell your young wife with a young kid, hey, I'm going to go to this town's party, and then you don't make money, I was like, you talk about the end of your rodeo, and like, it'll be hard enough going there, and you do win $2,200 for the evening, because you got to deal with walking, you know, like, daddy stay, you know. Yeah.
I told my wife on the way up here that somebody needs to start a podcast and call it Rodeo Wives.
There you go. Yeah.
Because, you know, really, you think about it, you know, they're home kind of keeping stuff, or most of them at home, keeping things patched up, keeping stuff, paying the bills, you know.
Yeah.
And allowing us to go do what we dreamed about, you know, and being that tough skin of, you know, because we all get the glory. I'm sitting here on this podcast getting to be the star.
And she's been there since the beginning.
She's been there since the beginning. And, you know, I'm kind of one of them guys, when I walk into a room of people, it ain't going to be 5 minutes. I'm going to have the attention of everybody somehow. You know what I mean? That's just
I'm just not that kind of way.
No, yeah, exactly. But forever, you know, it was like that she was running for second place, and I never thought about it, you know, until she brought it to my attention one time. She goes, you know, I always just felt like that I have to run for second. That's the reason I kind of hang off and don't say much, don't do much, because I'm just here, you know. And so
rodeo is overall, like, if you look at it on paper, it's a selfish endeavor that will, like, it takes like such a team to get it done, because like, if you're not all on the same page, like,
for sure.
And it's impossible for a wife to know what she's signing up for, you know. Yeah. And then you go to like actually looking at your P&L after the end of the year. It's like, you know what? I actually don't make that much money after it's all said and done.
That's what I tell somebody else. If I opened up a business, if I opened up any kind of business and it lost money 7 out of 10 years, I would be doing something different.
Right.
But it's an addiction.
Yeah.
I guess. You know, it's kind of like my dad. Amber put it on Facebook the other day that my boy's senior year and stuff, and my dad had him on his lap when he was about 2 years old, was in the practice pen practicing, and he had him bouncing him on his knee, and he said, let that boy get a little smell of this dirt in his own nostrils. And he said, he'll be right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way it is. When you get a little taste of it, you know, and I think about people that don't rodeo or never had, they don't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
not just as far as the addiction part of it, but the learning how to travel, learning how to survive,
Yeah.
learning how to just get around.
Yeah.
You know, we always laughed, said we was like a bunch of carnies, you know, and that's pretty much right.
It's crazy to see like the maturity of, let's say, a 24-year-old rodeo cowboy who may or may not have been to an NFR or two by then, compared to if you just meet a 24-year-old in the wild.
Absolutely.
You know, the mile, you know, like Chris said, it's not the years, it's the miles, and just having to gone to 90 rodeos that year. And now all of a sudden they've been in the PRCA for 6 years, you know, and they're a veteran at 24 or 25, you know, a guy might be, anyway, it's such a crazy lifestyle if you think about it. And then all of a sudden they're quote unquote retiring at 35, 36, you know, at least rough stock. And it's like, dang, these guys, like JB Mooney, it seems like he's lived 2 or 3 lifetimes.
Yeah,
He's
for sure.
38,
Yeah.
you know.
Seemed like if you heard about J.B. Mooney, like he should be 60.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, it's like
The miles
he's been
he's
around
been.
forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's rodeo cowboys. That's wild. Yeah, but we're gonna try to send some people to the auction.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, the auction deal, you know, I was working for Harry and I told him, I said, man, I'd like to go get my auction license. And he said, oh, really cool. He said, I went to auction school. So he had went to auction school and he was a Vietnam veteran. So he was big on fundraisers for the veterans. And so at that time, him and Larry Mahan had become good buds. And then Bobby Del Vecchio was running a dealership of his in Bowie. And Larry was living in Bowie. So, and then there's another man up there named Joel Jimenez, and Joel's head over the DAV up there in Wichita Falls. And so they put a little auction group of us together. It was Larry Mahan, me, Bobby Del Vecchio, and Harry. And we called us the 4 Cowboys plus 1. Joel, he's just a Mexican guy there in Wichita. That's just a
funny.
cool, funny dude, you know. He'll talk to anybody, and I mean, he can get some stuff done now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we had that as our group. So we'd fly to Lubbock, we'd fly to Angel Fire, we'd fly to different events and put on these auctions. And Harry would auctioneer, which not very good, but he would auctioneer, and me and Larry and Bobby and us, we would ring man for him.
Dang.
And of course, it was so funny that, you know, kind of like J.B. Mooney, everybody knew Larry Mahan. It didn't matter if they'd never heard of a rodeo in their life, they knew Larry Mahan.
Right.
And we'd go to them events, and Larry, with me and Bobby, would be like, all right, Larry, you want the outside, middle, where do you want? And I mean, there might be 700-800 people here that we're having to ring. And we'd look up about halfway through it, and Larry be over signing autographs.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and Bobby like, I said, just cover it. I mean, it's fine to go.
Yeah.
And but what a neat guy. I could sit with him and listen to his stories for days.
I met him in passing at the NFR once, and he was so I don't know, interested in what I had to say.
Yes.
And I was like, you know, and I didn't even know what to expect, but I remember thinking like, dang, that's neat. Like he was just locked in on what I had to say.
Yeah.
And
it never was about him.
Yeah.
He wanted to know what you were doing.
Yeah.
You know, and he was just so neat.
Yeah.
And to the short time that I really got to be around him, going to them events and stuff. But anyway, I told Harry, I said, hey, I want to go to auction school, get my auction license. He said, well, I guess go. Well, I had Amber called in there to Mike Jones Auction School at Dallas, and they were booked up. Didn't have no more spots. And I said, okay. Well, his wife, secretary at the time, Red, they called her, she called me on Friday at 3:30 and said, hey, we had somebody backed out. Can you come? School started Saturday morning. And I'm like, well, let me call Harry. So I called Harry. I said, hey, I can go in the morning if you're – yep, I'm going to be gone for 9 days. Yep, be fine, go. So I get down there the next morning, pay my tuition. We all sat down, and we stood up, and we started tongue twisters. And the first one was Rubber Baby Buggy Bumper. And so we're like rubber baby buggy bumper, and we're just going. Well, I'm like rubber. What the hell about a baby? What? And anyway, so about 20 minutes into this, I'm the dumb kid here. I'm like, these people can do this, and I'm gonna quit and go home, So I asked the dude next to me. I was like, "How do you know how to do all this already?" And he said, "Well, you didn't get your package." And I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, we've had a package for about 2 months. What to practice on and start." I'm like, "No, I got mine this morning, I guess." So anyway, I was kind of way behind in class, as far as that goes. But I'll never forget Mike Jones sat in there and he said, "Okay, give y'all some tips here. A good thing to do is when you get back home, be practicing your auction, go find you an auction company somewhere that you can help and be a part of to kind of learn the ropes of it and practice." And he said, "Don't think you're just going to jump out there and get an auction business and be successful." And, he's kind of preparing you for failure, what I'm saying. And when he was saying that the whole time, I was sitting there thinking, you don't know who I am.
There you go.
I make stuff happen.
Right.
You don't know who I am. And that's all I could think about. I thought, I got more hustle to me than that.
Yeah.
Wasn't very good auctioneering at that time. Still ain't just great, but I was like, I can sell some stuff. So I got home. About 5 days later, a banker that has seen me put it on Facebook and stuff that I'd been to auction school stuff, he said, "Hey, you're an auctioneer now, ain't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, you want to sell the deal out for me over here?" They had a trailer outfit there in Wichita Falls that went out of business, and they had the note on it. And he said, "I need you to sell that deal out for me." I said, "You dang right." I didn't even have my auction licenses at that time. I went home, told Amber, I said, "I got to get there and get my dang license. This deal's happening, And so I went down to Dallas and took my exam and got my auction license, and come home and put that auction on and had a good, successful auction. And then I thought, you know what? Nobody really knows I'm an auctioneer, so I gotta make this happen. So I went over and started putting on them consignment auctions, just created my own auction. And that was in 2015. And in 2019, me and Harry parted ways. I run the car auction up there 2 years for him. And then I was like, I want to go make myself money, quit making him money. And so we went to the auction business and bought that piece of property. Harry passed away in 2020. 19 or 20, I can't remember the year. Anyway, he passed away, and then his wife was selling some of the properties they had, and that property where my auction is, they owned it. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to purchase that property off of her. And the cool thing about it was I told my wife, I said, I want an auction in Clay County, but as close to Wichita as I can get.
Oh, neat.
That property, half of it is in Clay County, half of it's Wichita County.
Right. Yeah.
So, and just a small part of it's in the city limits of Wichita Falls. So it was pretty cool that happened, and it's just it's a great spot. And man, the auction deal's been such a blessing for us.
Such a hustle.
Yeah, it is.
It's such a hustle. You think it's just like one big payday and it's just not. You just have to hustle.
It's kind of like rodeoing. You slip around there and it may be 30 days before you get a paycheck.
Right.
And you're spending all this money. You kind of go thinking, darn, we sure are spending a lot. We need to have an auction. I need a payday here pretty quick, but the hustle and the go of it is what I think keeps me from missing rodeo, because it is a hustle. And
my granddad he was working the day he died. Like he was constantly moving, and it just, you're just always people calling you and then, what percentage of an auction on average do you think, what percentage of the items might you own that are going through there?
10%.
Yeah.
I try to buy all the equipment that I can, but I don't like buying equipment. And if you're thinking about bringing it to my auction and I buy it off you, then put it in my auction, to me, that's kind of bad business. I don't like doing that, because.
But if I don't want to mess with it,
if you don't want to mess with it, then I'm going to buy it. I'm going to give you quick cash, and I'm going to take it and put it in my auction.
Right.
So it's kind of a fine line there because I want to do as good for people as I can. I want to work for the buyer and the seller, and I want your stuff to bring as much money as I can, and I want the buyer to buy it as cheap as he can.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of a catch-22 there, but
then you always got this little inventory off to the side that you can put in and make you a quick buck on here.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how.
Yep.
That's how my granddad's auctions were.
You know, and there's since you're in that business, people know you're in that business, so people start calling you for that stuff. You know, it's kind of like Billy Easter up there that had the sale barn and stuff. You know, I always think, how do you get all these lease places? How does he get that? You know, because he's in that business,
Right?
And that's who they think about when they want to lease their place out.
Yep.
And they think, well, let's call Billy Easter. He'll know somebody.
Right.
And then he gets the lease. Well, that's kind of like in my deal when people's wanting to sell something or, you know, and I always think of that as advertising. I want everybody in the world, when they think about selling something or think about an auction, the first person they should think about is Mickey G. G Auctions.
There you go.
So that's my advertising scheme. And how do I do that? I got to stay in front of people all the time.
Yeah.
If you get to where you're not in front of people all the time, they'll forget about you.
Dang, that's a good thought. I didn't even think about that.
So staying in front, doing benefits, doing stuff to help people. I do a lot of them, and you can do it about one a week if you wanted to. And I try not, depending on what it is, I try not to charge because I just kind of write it off as advertising.
Dang.
You know, so.
Yeah.
Boys and Girls Club, I go do a deal for them. A lot of church, different stuff I help with, and just try to stay active in the community. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah. My granddad would do some marketing. I guess I was so little at that never really. In Wichita Falls, a lot like Amarillo, he kind of had a little bit of the market cornered in Amarillo during that time, and he come in right at the end of the internet or at the beginning of the internet. He was ending as the internet was beginning. Do you guys use the internet much?
Yeah. We use Proxy Bid is who our bidding platform is through, and so all our big auctions will be live and simulcast both. And then our car auction we do for the impound up there, we just do a straight live auction.
Gotcha.
A lot of guys are going to the straight online only. I like that, but I'm still a little old school. I think if I got you right here in front of me and I'm showing you a bulldozer and I'm showing you it operates and I can get you to give more money for that bulldozer if you're standing there looking at it and watching it and have more confidence in it than if you're just looking at a picture online.
Yeah, online it feels like more of a spreadsheet type, and then when you're
more of a gamble.
Right. And then in person, there can also be a little bit of the lure of just the nostalgia of an auction, the funness of it come into play, maybe.
The emotion, the get caught up
emotion.
Get caught up in the excitement.
Right.
And get caught up in that guy on that microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I've got it's a random part of my life looking back, when you hear Dale Brisby's stories, but yeah, summers, I would be helping. We would just go collect estates, a home in Amarillo or Canyon, and we'd be stuffing it in a trailer. I can Tetris in, I can stuff a trailer. There won't be a gap in it. It's just
it's good to know. I may need some help sometime.
Yeah, it's a random skill I have because we pack every knick-knack and everything, and then we take it. And he had somewhere between 20 and 30 of those cargo trailers, anywhere from 16 to 20 foot long. And that's how he'd store an estate, and they would get in line.
Yep.
And then it'd be, a month before each one, and you'd just go in right before the auction, and whatever trailer was next, that'd be one of the ones. Anyway, it was an interesting system. But
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah, if you ain't doing nothing April 18th, come up. I need another ring man.
That's a Wednesday, isn't it?
No, it's Saturday.
Oh, it is? Oh, yeah, that I might can make it. For some reason,
check your calendar. I'd love to have you up there. We always can use more ringmen.
The 15th is Wednesday. Because I've got to be in the barrel at Buck Jam. JB's mean bulls just running me over.
I got a couple of bulldoggers, Joe Walker, and that I rodeoed back in the day. He lives over at Springtown. He comes up and helps me. And then Clay Bailey, he lives over by Paradise. He comes up there. And,
is it equipment?
Yeah. Most all farm equipment, construction equipment, then golf. We sell a bit of everything: golf carts, pipe,
Right.
panels. You know, we got a little bit of everything.
Nice.
So
Cool.
you talking about them bullfighting days? So I fought bulls for Maury Tate.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, at Cody, Wyoming,
I did not know
at the
that.
night rodeo. Yeah,
At the 90-day little night rodeo
yep.
deal?
Yeah, fought bulls for him one night.
Oh, that's funny.
Rumford was in the barrel, so Maury wanted to take and show me all his bucking horses and stuff, and some country he had leased up there. And Maury and I have been good friends for I guess seemed like a lifetime. So we driving around checking all this stuff. Well, his bullfighter calls while we was out driving around, said he couldn't make it that night. And I told him, I said, shoot, Maury, don't worry about it. I'll fight bulls for you tonight. Well, it was the night before the pro rodeo.
On the 4th of July.
Yep. So Hunter Cure, Blake and Clay Mendeman, and myself was already on together, and we went there, but we had about 4 days off before the pro rodeo started. So we called Maury and said, hey, enter me and Blake in the team roping up and back. Enter me and Blake in the calf roping and the bulldogging. And enter Clay in the bulldogging because he didn't rope. And I said, enter Hunter in the bulldogging and the bull riding. Hunter used to ride bulls back in the day, a long time ago when he was a kid. And Hunter's like, oh, bull crap, don't enter me in no damn bull riding. And I was like, I ain't even got a rope. I said, we'll borrow you a rope. I think it's $25 an event or something to enter up there,
Right,
you know.
right.
And I said, what we're going to do, we're going to enter for 3 days, and then we're going to pool all our money together, and we'll split it 4 ways, or however much money we win. All right, we'll do it. So anyway, that was the night Hunter was going to ride this bull. And so I told Maury that I would fight bulls for him. Well, Keith Isley was there getting ready for the pro rodeo. So anyway, the rodeo starts, and I thought he knew I just kidding, you know, I wasn't going to fight bulls. Well, the announcer announces the staff and everybody and the bullfighters, so-and-so and Mickey G. And anyway, so here comes Keith. Come on, boy, get back here. Anyway, so he takes me back in his trailer, gets me all some baggies on and gets me everything, gets a little red hat on me. And anyway, so comes bull riding time. Well, Hunter's like, dude, if you get me hooked, you let me get hooked, I'm going to kill you, you know. And
Yeah.
anyway, so about 3 or 4 or 5 bulls there, you know, Maury would say, hey, step out there and turn him back right here. So I'd step out there and you know, this bull would turn back and I'd just step out of his way. And I thought,
I kind of got this.
right, I got this. And so anyway, here in a little bit, one went out there a little farther. I stepped out there around him, bucked the kid off. I drug him away from him and over there. And I thought, bull kind of come by me. I thought, I'm kind of badass at this.
Yeah.
Well,
Just as easy as I thought it would be.
yeah, just as easy. Well, Hunter, like I say, Justin Rumford's in the barrel. Hunter has a big old spotted speckled bull, and he's jumping, kicking, and he just kind of out across the arena and gets out there about where the third barrel was for the barrel racing. And you know what that ground's like after the barrel racing?
Yeah,
it's about
yeah.
yay deep.
Right.
Well, this bull bucks Hunter off and just comes right there to him, and I just pick him up. Hey, and he steps right around there to me. I thought, I got him, boy. Hunter's going to be proud of me. And I get in that deep ground, and I trip and fail, and this speckled sunbuck does hook me like nobody's business.
Dang.
I'm talking about mashes me. And all I can hear is Rumford, get up, fat boy, get up. Hurry, fat boy. Anyway, so I finally get up. He says, get over here by the barrel. Anyway, I run over by the barrel. They finally get the bull out of the arena. And anyway, I got over. I told Maury and everybody, I said, okay. I said, of course, a bunch of bulldoggers and stuff that come for the pro rodeo the next day. They're all there already, and they're watching the perf, you know. And
loving
they
it.
was laughing. I said, y'all seen what you got to want to see. Now I'm done. My bullfighting days are over.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had a video of it for a while. I don't remember where it's at.
God, that's funny.
But anyway, that Maury, he laughed. Oh, he laughed. But
That's funny.
good times. That was when Rumford was getting his start there in the barrel man deal. You know, he started right there at Cody.
Yeah.
He kind of got his start there in the barrel and took off from there.
We usually wrap up with life advice. What comes to mind whenever you think of like a motto that's been kind of a reoccurring thought in your head that kept you going?
Well, just lots of try. If I was to have a young kid here and said, man, I want to start bulldogging, you got any advice for me? I would tell him to get with somebody, you know, and learn the basics and then find you a couple of guys that you're built like, that you think you would steer wrestle like, and just go hang out with them. Mm-hmm. Go be a part of them. Open the chute for them. Just clean stalls, whatever you got to do. Go be a part of them and show them that you're serious about it and that you got a lot of try. Mm. And, and if you don't like it and you don't want to do it, don't do it. Don't waste everybody's time. Don't have that little fly-by-night deal that I want to be a bull rider or whatever, But if you've got to try and you got to want to, you can find somebody that'll help you.
Yeah, you bet.
And, so don't give up, but you got to try.
Yeah.
It's like I tell my boy, I told him back, 3 or 4 months ago when he was playing football, seemed like his junior year, about halfway through, it kind of clicked to him, and he would light you up. Mm-hmm. And this year, he would he had it. Mm-hmm. It was there. And the timing was good, and I mean, he would make you hate football.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I said, now I want you to think about football, because that's about when he told me he wanted to start bulldogging. And I said, I want you to think about football. I want you to think about how gritty that you became your senior year. I want you to start thinking about being that gritty bulldogging.
Yeah.
Because you got the athletic ability and you got the mind, you got the want to, but you got to be gritty.
Yeah.
And there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference in being gritty, tough, wanting to do it, as to just kind of want to do it.
Yeah. Dang. That'll be the difference maker.
Yep.
And just going down the road and then getting a gold buckle.
And learning how to win.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of people out there bulldogging, riding bulls, doing stuff, and got talent, that are talented, but they don't know how to win.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
There's a difference in winners.
Yeah.
Darren Dale, do you know Darren Dale? Darren Dale from up there in Kansas and stuff, and Nebraska. He puts on some farm shows and stuff, and he's got a He's got a deal called
Yep. He hired me.
Winners Win by Darren Dale.
Yeah.
And he started this a while back, kind of a podcast deal like you do. But when he put that on there, Winners Win by Darren Dale, it just hit me. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to find a way. I play golf with several guys up there at Wichita Falls, Rick Spicer and Pat Thomas and the pro up there and stuff, and they are way better golfers than me. And I play about 3 days a week. But I'm going to beat you somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to give me some strokes. We're going to do something. I'm going to figure out a way to beat you.
All right.
And that's a difference in winners.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to figure out a way to win.
I had to figure out a way to win with Darren Dale. He hired me to make an appearance at a farm show, and in Kansas. If it's the same Darren, and
he does one in Kansas.
I got there. I pulled up, and not really sure why I was getting hired to do, but it was early for me, and what little money I was getting paid was a lot for me at the time. And anyways, the guy at the gate was like, "Oh, you're the guy on the poster. You're at 1 p.m." And I was like, "Doing what at 1?" He was like, You're stand-up comedian. And I was like, "No, I'm not." Well, anyways, according to this poster, I'm supposed to do stand-up at 1:00, this show. And it went about the way you would think it would go for a guy that's never done stand-up. And I'm at a farm show where the average age of the attendees was like 62. And the second day was a little better. I had some time, I didn't get, but that first day was just, anyway. So that's my one Darren Dale story. Little miscommunication.
That's a typical Darren Dale. I love him to death.
At the beginning. Yeah, it was like, but that's my, I don't do stand-up comedy, but I have one time at a farm show in Kansas.
To old men.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you coming out. We'll everybody look out for the auction the 18th, and look out for geauctions.com, right?
Yep, www.geeauctions.com.
And then you can go to the next auction there or shop online.
Yep, and if you got anything you want to sell,
that too.
We'll turn that stuff into cash for you.
You bet.
If you got some stuff sitting around that's getting a little age on it or whatever, send it to us.
Yeah, I got a skid steer I might one day move through you. So, cool. Well, we're on to the next one, everybody. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Pow, pow. Hey, old son, if you're a fan of JB Mooney like I am, then go to rodeotime.com and check out his personal apparel line. That's right, as his best friend, I handle all of his apparel for him. You got this Walking Tall tee, this brand new Bad to the Bone tee. Look, we've got like a dozen caps here that some of them are brand new, may not be available yet. But look out for rodeotime.com and they will be soon. Sometimes we do posters that he'll sign, very limited edition. You can text Mooney Zone to 940-353-0890 and I'll let you know when his apparel drops. His Bucking Bulls in Stephenville, where he keeps them, it's called Bucktown. It's his own, very own brand. And that is coming soon to rodeotime.com. I love you all. Pow pow.